This is how a police officer responded to a call involving a dispute between neighbors.
Don't make me come in that house. I will come in that house. I will come in that house. Get out here now. Do it now. Do it now. You think I'm going to argue with you? I'm going to tase your.
Within the first few seconds, the officer pulled out his taser and started aggressively making threats to one particular individual.
All I came here to do was to talk to you. Don't tell me how to run my shift. I'll have as many officers here as I want. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Why? Because the other neighbor that was involved was an off-duty police officer.
So I've got a he said, she said. Granted, he's an officer, but I'm asking you what you want to do with it. I'll do whatever you want done. You're the Vic.
Guess which guy got charged?
I'd like to prosecute for ag assault.
And yeah.
But that's not how it ended. I'll show you the footage, and I'll tell you what happened with the criminal charges and also the civil lawsuit that was filed. As a practicing civil rights lawyer, I'll go over some of the constitutional rights at play here that people should understand. And if you like going over police encounters and interesting and important court cases and learning about civil rights, please subscribe because I try to put a video up at least twice a week. So let's dive in. In East Ridge, Tennessee, on a peaceful suburban street, a man named Cadron Lachlan was transporting a developmentally disabled client to his home when all hell broke loose involving a neighbor of that home where he was delivering the client. This video was submitted to me by the criminal defense attorney who had represented Cadron against the charges that came from what you're about to see. Although it happened a while back, the ensuing civil lawsuit was just recently settled. I haven't seen reporting about it anywhere. Here's what happened. 22-year-old Cadron Lachlan was working for a company called Orange Grove. His job was to drop off a disabled client at this particular home. And as he was doing so, the family's dog ended up getting loose. Cadron helped the family chase the dog up the street. When he finally caught the dog had run onto the property of an off-duty police officer named Andrew Carter. Carter and Lachlan then exchanged words, and Carter told Cadron to get off his property. This is Cadron's version of what was said.
He said, if you step foot on my property, I got something for you. Then I said, I got something for you too.
But off-duty police officer Andrew Carter called the cops on Cadron, and this is what he said happened. This is according to the police report. Carter stated, Lachlan said, "Shut the F up. I got something for you in car, you effing pig," and went after the canine. And Carter stated that minutes later, Lachlan was walking back to the other house and his vehicle, making indistinguishable hostile statements in hostile body language. I have a copy of the lawsuit that was subsequently filed, and this is what Cadron's lawsuit alleges about that moment. Cadron, along with the minor son of this family and his friend, so two minors, went with Cadron down the street towards Officer Carter's residence to fetch the dog. Cadron and the two minors saw the dog on Officer Carter's property, and as they went onto the property to get the dog, it ran off down the street where plaintiff Cadron and the minors gained control of the dog and headed back to their residence. As Cadron, the minors, and the dog walked on the street and passed Officer Carter's residence, Carter, while on his front yard, yelled to the three people that if they set foot on his property again, that he had, quote, something for you. At no time did Cadron or the minors do or say anything to Officer Carter to provoke Carter's threat. Carter had his East Ridge issued police car parked in front of the residence, and Cadron saw Carter place his hand on a firearm that Officer Carter carried on his person. He was not wearing a police uniform at the time. As Cadron and the two minors walked, Cadron responded to Carter that he had something for Carter too. At no time did Cadron ever display any weapon. So Cadron, the two minors, and the dog made it back to the Lewis family residence when just a few minutes later, one of Officer Carter's colleagues, who was on duty, Officer Royce Stasher, arrived with two other East Ridge police officers arriving behind him. Officer Royce Stasher approached Cadron and the homeowner as they were on the front porch. Roy Stasher was immediately and without any justification verbally abusive towards the plaintiff. This is the very beginning of the footage.
Don't make me come in that house. I will come in that house. I will come in that house. Get out here now. Do it now. Do it now. You think I'm going to argue with you? I'm going to tase your.
Before even learning any facts, Officer Roy Stasher immediately gets aggressive and escalates the situation, while Cadron, as you can see, is compliant and calm.
I didn't do nothing.
All I came here to do was to talk to you. Now let me.
Oh, yeah. They should have been one.
Don't tell me how to run my shift. I'll have as many officers here as I want. Do you understand what I'm saying?
As Cadron sits on the front steps of this house, the officers accuse him of threatening Officer Carter. But they're not wanting to listen to Cadron that it was actually Officer Carter who threatened him and the kids.
You threatening off-duty officer?
No, he threatened me.
But the officers chose not to document in their police report that Cadron said he was threatened first by Carter.
And he accidentally let our dog out. That's all that happened.
Roy Stasher then told Officer Carter that Cadron and the homeowner said that it was Carter who threatened Cadron.
He says you threatened him first. Is that an incorrect statement?
It is.
Carter then falsely claimed that it was Cadron who made threats towards him.
So I've got a he said, she said. Granted, he's an officer, but I have to look at it from that side.
And Roy Stasher then asked Carter, "What do you want to do with it? I'll do whatever you want. You're the Vic," meaning victim.
I'm asking you what you want to do with it. I'll do whatever you want done. You're the Vic.
I'd like to prosecute for ag assault.
So he then charged and arrested Cadron rather than his colleague.
Okay? And yeah.
Despite off-duty Officer Carter's wife saying that she was not certain about who said what or that she even saw anything, and despite not even interviewing the two minors who were present during the alleged threats, Officer Roy Stasher still arrested Cadron on the false charge of aggravated assault.
I thought I was going to tase his dumb. I was about to. If he'd have taken one more step in the house, I would have.
But get this, Roy Stasher also charged Cadron with 2 counts of reckless endangerment for having a firearm while he was transporting Orange Grove residents, a firearm that was later found under the front seat of his car. As his lawyers alleged in the subsequent civil lawsuit, Cadron had a constitutional right to bear and possess a firearm. He was not prohibited by any state or federal law from possessing a firearm. Nevertheless, these false charges indeed got Cadron fired from his job with Orange Grove. This incident brings to light the importance of understanding our constitutional rights. The Fourth Amendment protects us against unreasonable searches and seizures. While police officers can make a warrantless arrest of somebody, if they're going to do so, they must have probable cause that the arrestee has committed the crimes they're arresting them for. When the officer arrested Cadron for aggravated assault, the key allegation there is that he was threatening this off-duty officer with his firearm. And in reality, the facts that were available to the officer at the time had nothing about the firearm that was later found in Cadron's car. As the officer admitted, it was a he said, she said. The officer alleged that Cadron had threatened him. Cadron alleged that the officer had threatened him. It was actually a complete non-issue, non-crime. 2 people had words, even at a time when Cadron wasn't even on the officer's property. Cadron never refused to leave the officer's property. Cadron never failed to comply with the commands of the officer. He answered all the questions. He was calm, but the officer acted in a very unreasonable manner, immediately detaining Cadron and pointing his taser at him. The case law is very clear that a police officer pointing a taser at somebody who is compliant and who is not posing an immediate safety threat to anybody is unreasonable under the Fourth Amendment. And actually, the real facts showed that the only individual who was armed during these words that were exchanged was the off-duty officer. He admitted to his colleagues that he was armed at all times during this incident. And get this, the criminal defense lawyer, Chris Dixon, gave this footage to the news media. And so a TV reporter went out to Officer Carter's home to try to ask him some questions about this incident. And guess what? he shows up visibly armed.
We went to Officer Carter's home today to ask him about Lachlan's accusations.
Can y'all leave, please?
He told us he was not allowed to comment, and as we were packing up, a uniformed East Ridge officer showed up.
And his cop buddies also show up in what appears to be intimidation of the media. But it didn't work because just 15 minutes after the story about this aired on the TV news, a press release was sent out by the government notifying the media that all charges against Kadron Lachlan were dropped. East Ridge Police Chief Stan Allen released the following statement about dropping Kadron's charges. As a result of my inquiry, I believe the charge of aggravated assault to be inappropriate. I had a discussion with the prosecutor and the decision was made to dismiss the charge of aggravated assault and not pursue the appropriate charges of reckless endangerment for leaving a loaded firearm in the vehicle with the clients. So Officer Roy Stasher was given a 1-day suspension for the language that was used towards Mr. Lachlan and also remedial training in Tennessee state law, according to Chief Allen. After the criminal charges were dropped, Kadron Lachlan filed a civil lawsuit. I'll post a full copy of it up on the blog. The link will be in the first pinned comment below. Several months back, the civil lawsuit was settled. I looked on Pacer and there's no mention of the settlement terms. I reached out to Kadron's attorneys in that case, and they noted that they could not comment on the settlement. So unfortunately, I can't give you the details. Presumably, he was paid some amount of money in exchange for signing a release. How much money? I don't know. I wish we did know. Kadron Lachlan's encounter with the East Ridge Police serves as a powerful reminder that the thin blue line is always there, even when police officers are off duty, and that the only way to counteract that thin blue line is through exposure, through video footage, through the public perception of seeing something that's not right and then being outraged about it. This is just another example of government only doing the right thing after the public sees it and gets angry about it. And I have to say that the most shocking part of this video footage for me is the disparity between the officer just flying off the handle and really wanting to harm Kadron, and Kadron just being completely calm and keeping his head together and keeping things together. Because even though it's not supposed to be required, if you're a good witness for yourself in incidents such as these, and people see this footage and they sympathize with you because you're the good guy in the footage rather than the bad guy, that really does go a long way in the end result. Clearly, this officer has a short fuse, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of them. What do you think about the officer's actions here? What do you think about the off-duty officer's actions? And what do you think about East Ridge's decision to only suspend this officer for 1 day? Let me know in the comments. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more police encounters and constitutional rights discussions. Remember, our rights don't end where your fear begins. Freedom is scary. Deal with it.